Tonight's big stories. Another incident of harassment by China in the West Philippine Sea. This time around, the Chinese Coast Guard drove away a group of Filipino fishermen from the Scarborough Shoal and even asked them to return shellfish that they caught back to the sea.
Congress resumes session with a special mention on charter change. How is this lower house going to proceed with efforts to amend the Constitution? We'll have former House Speaker Pantaleon Alvarez to talk about it later on.
And Senator Dela Rosa calls on the Marcos Jr. administration to verify claims that the International Criminal Court has completed its inquiry into former President Rodrigo Duterte's war on drugs.
Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Sean Yao.
I'm Maricel Halili.
And I'm Denise Tan.
Senator Dela Rosa urges the Marcos administration to formally confirm claims that the International Criminal Court has already conducted their investigation into the war on drugs.
Dela Rosa made this call after former Senator Antonio Trillanes said the ICC may issue a warrant of arrest against him and former President Duterte soon.
Brian Basa has more details on that. Brian, good evening. How soon are we talking exactly?
Hi, Sean. Former Senator Trillanes says investigators from the ICC had already concluded their probe into the drug war in December. He says the probers have gathered enough evidence to issue a warrant of arrest against former President Duterte and other defendants like former PNP chief and now Senator Dela Rosa by the second quarter of this year. When asked if he has proof of this, here's what Trillanes said.
Meron akong proof. But hindi ko pwedeng i-divulge yun dahil merong mga confidentiality agreements. Itong confidentiality agreements na ito ay para masigurado yung seguridad ng mga testigo na kinakausap ng ICC.
Senator Dela Rosa, who was police chief during the Duterte administration's war on drugs, says he is ready to cooperate with the ICC but only if the government itself allows the probe. With that, Dela Rosa has this call to Malacanang.
Pakiusap ko lang, isprangkahan, usapang lalaki. Kung gusto ninyong imbestigahan kami, gusto niyo kaming makulong, din sabihan niyo kami ng harap-harapan. Huwag yung iba yung sinasabi.
Dela Rosa says the administration should be, in his own words, man enough to admit if it did allow the ICC to conduct its probe. He says there are also citizens of the Philippines who have a right to know what the government's decision is on the ICC investigation.
Ang mangyari niya, para tayo sinaksak sa likod niyan. What I am asking from this government is to be man enough to please tell us what's the real score. Sabihan lang. Wala namang problema dyan. Sabihan lang, wala lang patalikod na transaksyon. Pag sinabihan mo ako noon na hindi sila pwedeng pumasok, at ngayon nagbago yung ihip ng hangin, pumayag na kayo na pumasok, please tell us. You are our president. You are our leader. Tell us so that we know what to do.
Well, back in November, Senator Dela Rosa said President Marcos vowed not to allow the ICC probers into the country. But if the tides have turned, Dela Rosa has this to say.
It will make a validation of the statement of the saying that walang forever. Nagbago in the sense na sabi dati ayaw. Hindi makapasok. Ngayon, nakapasok na pala. At tatapos ng investigation. So, ibig sabihin, nagbago talaga ang stand ng government. Kung totoo yan, granting na totoo yan pinagsasabi ni Antonio Trillanes.
Despite his earlier statements, Senator Dela Rosa seemed to have mellowed out his tune in an interview on Sa Totoo Lang on 1PH. He says he will no longer ask for the president's confirmation on the probe and that he will wait for the government's official announcement. For now, the PNP cannot verify yet the claim that the ICC probe has already been conducted here in the country. But they said if a warrant of arrest is indeed issued, they will defer to the administration for their next move. Former Chief Presidential Legal Counsel Sal Panelo meanwhile says former President Duterte has also received word of Trillanes' claim. Panelo says natawa lang daw ang dating Pangulo and that Duterte will simply ignore the statements. Back to you.
Right, thank you so much for that update. News 5's Brian Basa. Okay, another big story for this Monday, another report of Chinese harassment in the West Philippine Sea. But this time around, the Chinese Coast Guard kicked Filipino fishermen out of the Bajo de Masinloc and even told the Filipinos to return the shellfish that they caught back into our own territory. Now, that incident took place on January 12 and was caught on two separate footage released by the Philippine Coast Guard. Let's watch that.
Pwera mo natin, tabidyoan natin.
Ayun, hinaharang nila yung bangka na service ng bangka na Pilipino. Ayan, tinaboy sila ng China Coast Guard. Saktan nyo sila.
May dala silang pamalo.
Sila pwede manakit yan. Okay, manakit sila, nakabidyo sila.
Isa ka may mga baril sila na ay. Balik nyo na rito!
News 5's Gio Robles was able to speak with one of the fishermen in an exclusive interview. He is Jack Tabat, 36 years old, who admits feeling fear every time he recalls the incident. Sabi ni Jack, ginamitan pa raw sila ng megaphone ng mga tauhan ng Chinese Coast Guard. Nagkaroon pa raw ng habulan. And before they were asked to leave the area, the Chinese Coast Guard went after the dolphin shells of taktakon caught by the group of fishers. Jack says the Chinese did not allow them to return to their mother boat unless they returned the shells back to the water. China even deployed its own rubber boats to tail the Filipino boat being used by the fishermen.
Tapos nung kumuha na yung kasama ko sa sa Scarborough, sa may hunasan, sabi nila, biglang lapit nung China Coast Guard, nagbaba sila ng rubber boat. Pinuntahan nila yung kumuha ng mga shell. Bakit sila pinagbabawal? Shells lang naman yung kukunin nila para pang ulam, parang halian.
Now, how's the situation of our Filipino fishermen now, and what do Philippine authorities have to say about the latest Chinese harassment? Gio Robles gives us the answers. Gio.
Denise, you know what? The fishermen have returned here in Infanta, Pangasinan following that incident. But for Jack Tabat, one of the fishermen, it's still confusing why China kicked them out of Bajo de Masinloc or Scarborough Shoal when it's part of the Philippine territory. In my exclusive interview, Jack told me that even if they wanted to fight back, they have no means to do so against the China Coast Guard.
Gusto na nilang lumabad, pero ang inisip nila, baka kami lang di mapapahamak kasi bangka lang ang gamit namin, sa kanila barko. Anong laban ng bangka sa barko?
Jack added that such incidents are not new to them. He says his own boat was rammed by a Chinese Coast Guard ship in the past.
Bilangga talaga yung service boat ko. Pero yun, wala akong video. Pero totoo yung, in-interview din ako ng Navy. Bilangga po talaga yung service boat ko na pataob. Buti nakabalik yung bangka ko. Tapos yung kasamahan ko, puntik pang mahulog.
Jack also expressed frustration over the constant harassment being faced by Filipino fishermen in our own territorial waters.
Api-api talaga tayo. Inaangkin na nila talaga. Inaangkin na nila para maproteksyonan din kami na mangingisda. Kasi meron ding mangingisdang China doon napoproteksyonan sila ng China Coast Guard. Kay President Sir Bongbong, dapat ngayon po sana ma-actionan na rin kagad. Ang gusto lang naman namin, yung malaya din kami makapangisda sa loob ng Scarborough.
Denise, the National Security Council condemned the Chinese Coast Guard's latest harassment in the disputed waters. The NSC expressed their worries over the incident, especially as they initially expected 2024 to be a more peaceful year for the West Philippine Sea. This also came on the heels of a bilateral consultation, a meeting held last week between the Philippines and China. Denise, from Infanta here in Pangasinan, back to you and good evening.
Thank you for that, Gio Robles.
Up next, Senator Bato de la Rosa says he has information that House Speaker Martin Romualdez himself ordered the conduct of the signature drive for the People's Initiative campaign to amend the Constitution. More details on that when we return. Keep it here on One News. You're watching the big story here on One News. As lawmakers begin to tackle charter change, part of discussions include whether there were deliberate attempts to buy out petition signatures. Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva said the upper chamber is taking on an active role in verifying alleged reports of bribery over Chacha. Senator Amy Marcos earlier called for a Senate inquiry over supposed incidents of signature buying in different localities.
Kung meron pong nagoyo, nabudol, o gusto nyo pong magreklamo at bawiin ang inyo pong pirma, huwag po kayong matakot na magsumbong. Magpadala po kayo ng post, ng video, picture o screenshot ng mga text ng mga panunuhol. Panawagan natin kung totoong PI o People's Initiative ito. Sige po, subalit kung meron pong bilihan, suhulan, pagsasamantala sa ating mga kababayan.
Alright, medyo seryoso na talaga yung Senate at this point in time. I heard si Senate President Mig Subiri, he also said magre-resign siya once people start tinkering with anything other than yung economic provisions na napag-usapan sa kanyang resolution.
Yes, but I wonder kung paano nila gagawin na hindi mabuksan yung ibang mga provisions once na inopen nila for amendment.
Sabi daw ni Representative Salceda, plebisito na raw sa June, certification of results by July before SONA. Tingnan natin kung aabot. Pero sa dami ng tanong, one particular question on everyone's mind right now is who exactly is orchestrating this push for Chacha? Now, one senator has claimed to have some insider knowledge. We have Man Los Baños to tell us who this is. Go ahead, Man.
Yes, Sean, Senator Dela Rosa said they've gotten information from some congressmen that the push for a people's initiative allegedly has the blessing of the House leadership, particularly from House Speaker Martin Romualdez.
Boss, pasensya ka na. Just following orders lang kami. May orders yung aming speaker. So, sunod lang kami sa order. Following orders lang daw sila. So, wala tayong, mahirap din sisihin mo sila. Pero, kung tutuusin, pwede talaga sisihin. Bakit ba? Porque order, sunod ka na sunod. Nakikinabang ka rin siguro dyan.
We're still waiting for confirmation on whether the House is supporting and connected to these efforts on the ground for a people's initiative. We do know that in Davao, these initiatives have already started. Recall that Congressman Pulong Duterte has also spoken up against it. Senator Dela Rosa also expressed dismay over congressmen that are supporting the ongoing People's Initiative, lobbying for joint voting between the House and Senate over charter amendments.
Wala ng bicameralism, wala pa yung checks and balances. Paano kung anong gusto nila, sila lang masusunod. Kahit ayaw namin, overrule, dahil 24 against 322. Saan ka makakakita ng checks and balances niyan? Wala na. Kung anong gusto ng liderato nila sa House, yun ang masusunod. Kuha na lang kami dito. Ang Senado, kuha na lang. Dekorasyon na lang. Wala nang gamit.
Sean, Senator Dela Rosa made it clear that he has no issue with charter change as long as the amendments will only be focused on economic provisions, similar to the resolution filed by Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri. Sean?
All right, thanks so much for that update, Man Los Baños.
Speaking before his fellow lawmakers, House Speaker Martin Romualdez cited the economic benefits of amending the charter. He also welcomed the Senate's role in taking the lead over charter change.
This signals a strong sense of unity and purpose. The Congress of the Philippines now acting as one body. Sa tulong ng Senado at lahat ng Pilipino nakahangad ng pagbabago, matutupad na rin ang pangarap natin na mabuksan ang ekonomiya para makapasok ang pondong kailangan sa paglikha ng mas maraming negosyo, trabaho at kabuhayan ng mga Pilipino.
Sinagot din ni Speaker Martin itong claim ni Senator Dela Rosa about him calling the shots on People's Initiative.
Senator Bato, a congressman told him that it was you who ordered the congressmen to gather signatures for People's Initiative.
I don't know what he's talking about. He has not mentioned any congressman.
Charter change has made its way in and out of legislative agenda over the years and is now back in the spotlight. Joining us tonight to talk about it is former House Speaker and now Davao del Norte Representative Pantaleon Alvarez. Good evening, Congressman Alvarez. Welcome to the big story.
Hi, good evening, Denise, tama ba ako? O Sean and Maricel.
Yes, sir. Good evening. Sir, first, we understand that you supported charter change, especially during the Duterte administration. Naging usapan
Yes,
yung tungkol
that is
sa
right.
federalism. But now, what do you think of the current landscape and yung kind ng tsa-tsa na ipinupush at sinusuportahan ngayon?
Iba noon, tsaka iba ngayon. Yung noon, yung kay dating President Duterte, malinaw yung papalitan. Nagbuo pa siya ng Constitutional Commission na pinamunuan ni dating Chief Justice Renato Puno. Ang mga members noon talagang may pangalan din, no? Andoon si Dean July Tihanki, nandoon si Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya, nandoon si Professor Ed Tayaw at iba pa. Malinaw. At in fact, yung draft ng Constitution proposed ay pinakita at pinabasa.
Pero sir, hindi ba malinaw din naman ngayon, especially Senate President Mig Zubiri stated that he's willing to resign kung merong na-discuss outside of the economic provision?
Nako, baka mapahamak siya dyan.
Bakit
Dahil
po?
sa tingin ko, delikadong mangyari yun, magre-resign. Kasi isipin nyo ha, i-convene nila ang Congress into a Constituent Assembly. Anong mangyayari? Pag sinabi ng mga congressman, hindi yan ang gusto namin, ito ang gusto namin na revision ng Constitution. Anong magagawa ng 12 senador? Can they object? No. Sasabihin lang ng mga congressman, sundin natin ang saligang batas. Anong nakalagay doon? To amend or revise the Constitution, you need 3/4 votes of all its members. Hindi po sinabi kung voting jointly or separately. So pag nakuha na namin yung 3/4 votes, tapos na ang boxing. Ang Senado, paggising nila, baka hapon na. Takbo na lang sila sa Supreme Court to question the proceedings.
Okay, pero backtrack tayo ng konti, no, Congressman Alvarez, na pag
Yes, ma'am.
nagsimula itong mga usap-usapan no, bago magpasko, syempre nagbakasyon. Nung tail end ng bakasyon at nung bukas lang ulit ng sesyon, may mga na-interview kami, iba't ibang mga colleagues nyo po, no, na congressman din. Ang sinasabi nila, wala daw clear directive naman from the House leadership. So nagtataka kami kung saan nga ba nanggagaling yung direktiba na pag-usapan ito no, sa mababang kamara. Do you have any idea or has it now become clear kung saan po nanggagaling yung directive? Is it really coming from the House leadership as you heard probably kanina na sinabi ni Senator Dela Rosa?
Alam mo, Sean, tama ba ako, Sean? No? Mahirap i-trace yung saan galing yung order. Dahil siyempre, nag-iingat din yan para merong deniability pag tinanong. Pero ito na lang i-apply nyo. Preponderance of evidence. Yun na lang. Yun ang nakikita kong pwedeng maging dyan, basehan. Ano yun? Ito yung indications pointing at the same person.
Okay. Meron din po bang nagyayari signature campaign sa inyong district po sa Davao del Norte? Of course, we've heard last week na si Representative Paulo Duterte, nagkukumahog po siya kasi meron din daw pong umiikot sa Davao City. Meron din po ba sa Davao del Norte? May
Dito sa Davao del Norte, meron. Talagang meron. In fact, ito ang ginagamit nila, pera, AX, sa pamamagitan ng Tingo party list. Doon dinadaan yung pera. Yun ang pinamimigay, AX. Ngayon, yung local government ng Tagum City, dinagdagan pa. Kung pipirma doon sa petition, doon sa tinatawag nilang People's Initiative, pag pumirma ka dyan, pwede nang hindi ka magbayad ng realty taxes mo.
Sir, sino po ang nag-utos nito dyan sa lugar po ninyo?
Yung mayor namin, kasi tauhan ni Romualdez yan.
Oh, so is it possible din po, sir, for the proposed changes to the Constitution to go beyond what is in Senate President Martin Romualdez or Mig Zubiri, pardon me, to deal with po yung the cha-cha change?
That's very possible.
What makes you say that, Kong?
Kasi sa totoo lang, sinasabi lang nila economic provision para medyo masarap pakinggan. Pero sa totoo, hindi yan economic provision. Alam ko na yan. Sus, Mariosep, ang tagal na natin dyan.
Meron bang way, Kung nagtataka kasi kami, may way ba po na lagyan ng bakuran at boundaries at limitations kung ano po yung magagawa ng specific round of cha-cha, let's say, pumasa, matuloy, via CONAS or via whatever, no, PPI. Meron po bang way na limitahan kung ano po yung pwede as per the law?
Mahirap gawin yan. Walang way para sabihin mo, ito lang pag-uusapan natin. Hindi eh. Sa oras na nabuksan yan, sa oras na kinonvene mo yung Congress as a constituent body, as a constituent assembly, kahit ano pwede na mangyari. Kahit anong gusto nilang palitan, pwedeng palitan yan.
So sir, what particular provisions yung nakikita ninyo na mukhang interesado yung mga legislators sa mapag-usapan aside dun sa economic provisions?
Gagawing from presidential to parliamentary form of government.
What about term
Mahalaga yun
limits?
dahil merong iba dyan. Merong isa, alam niyang hindi niya kayang manalo pag sumama siya sa eleksyon. Pagka Pangulo ng Pilipinas. So, shortcut. Gagawin niyang parliamentary form of government. Pagka ganun, yung mga representatives lang ang kausap mo para mag-elect sa'yo para maging prime minister.
Okay. Usapang numero naman, no, Kung medyo 315, 316 po kayo. Napakadami po. As we know, may super majority naman sa lower house. Would you know if the whole super majority is towing the line when it comes to charter change or meron ba pong mga bitak-bitak dyan or mga factions? Is the law...
Madaling kunin yun. Yung 3/4 votes, madaling kunin yun. Kasi idadanggil lang nila yung infrastructure projects na kinakancel nila ngayon. Kinakancel yan. Kahit pinrogram ng DPWH yan after consultation ng Regional Development Councils, kinancel pa rin nila at inilagay nila doon sa unprogram sa budget.
Yung po ba yung
Pwede
nangyari?
gamitin yun.
Yung po ba yung nangyari kay Congressman Duterte, Pulong Duterte? Kasi yun
Nangyayari po hindi lang sa kanya, hindi lang po kay Congressman Duterte. Nangyari sa akin at nangyari din sa ibang congressman yan.
Okay. Magkano po yung natapya sa inyong budget? Infrastructure?
Ay, malaki. Ang pinrogram sa akin ng DPWH, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, nasa mga 1.2. Kasi yun ang kinakailangan ng mga infrastructure projects dito sa distrito ko. Ang naiwan sa akin, kung hindi ako nagkakamali, mga 500. Kaya nga, nung ulan ng ulan dito sa district, kaya hindi ako makaalis dito, dahil yung mga major infrastructure projects, kagaya yung bawa ng dredging, ng mga silted rivers, construction ng mga dikes para hindi yung tubig galing sa river makalabas, kinancel nila. At yung amount nilagay doon sa unprogram. Yan po ang nangyayari.
Sir, merong mga lumalabas kasi na balita na by July, kailangan okay na yung People's Initiative or at least naka-ready na before SONA para dire-diretso yung charter change, yung amendment ng ating Constitution. Meron ba kayo napapag-usapan among congressmen tungkol po sa usaping ito?
Sa ngayon, hindi ko alam dahil hindi ako pumapasok sa Kongreso. Dahil nga binabaha kami rito sa Davao del Norte, kailangan ko rin asikasuhin. Yung mga constituents namin na nagkakaproblema sa baha.
Pero sir, makikibalita na rin ako kung ano pong opinion nyo tungkol dito sa People's Initiative. I mean, ano bang patutunguhan nito? Because sinasabi nga po ng COMELEC, there are a number of groups that already submitted yung kanilang mga signatures sa COMELEC. Ano ba nakikita ninyo magiging resulta nito?
Ang mahirap dyan, dito naman ako humanga, sincerely humanga ako sa chairman natin ng COMELEC ngayon, na si Chairman George Garcia. Humanga ako sa kanya dahil bago lang naglabas siya ng kanyang statement na those signatures obtained with consideration of money and the like may be voided. So syempre, that's very encouraging. Kasi pwede tayong pumunta sa husgado, sa Supreme Court, para questionin yung mga signatures na yon gathered.
Kung mabilis lang, no? I think may tanong si Denise, pero while we're on the topic, asa nakikita niya ba, kaya po ba sinasabay itong dalawang initiative? Kasi may CONAS, tapos may People's Initiative. So paano to? Sa nakikita ninyo? Kung ano yung matuloy, kung ano yung kumagat ng mas mabilis, mas maaga magka-traction, yun ang susundan nating way? Or sabay-sabay ba itong pauugungin?
Mas mabilis ang ang Constituent Assembly. Mas mabilis yun. Kasi igagather mo lang yung mga mambabatas. Tapos mag-convene as an assembly to amend the Constitution. Mas mabilis yun. Tapos magbubutuhan. Tapos na. Then, yung ratification na schedule. Pero sa ratification, may requirements pa rin yung saligang batas. Kinakailangan extensive yung information drive at saka yung education doon sa mga taong bayan. Ano ba itong papalitan natin sa saligang batas? Dapat magpaliwanag sa taong bayan yan. Bago sila sumali sa butuhan kung ira-ratify nila o i-reject yung amendment sa ating saligang batas.
Kung actually gusto kong, bago yung tanong ko, nabanggit nyo lang din kasi kanina, kamustahin ko na rin po kayo, nasabi nyo yung pag-uulan dyan, pati na rin yung pagbabaha, and we all know, nangyari din po yan, apektado ang Davao del Norte. Kamusta po kayong lahat dyan?
Well, so far, tumigil na yung ulan, at saka nag-subside na rin yung baha. Kaya lang siyempre maraming nasalanta, no? May mga bahay damage dahil nga doon sa yung tubig pumasok sa mga bahay. Tapos yung mga tao na may iba ay walang makain. Mabuti na lang at walang nasawi o yung bang nasaktan. Salamat na rin sa Diyos.
And hopefully maging better na nga yung situation dyan. Sir, thank you for joining us, Davao del Norte Representative Pantaleon Alvarez.
Now up next, Manila's Pasig River side has gotten a makeover and is sparking talks on urban revival. We'll be speaking with architects Paulo, Alcazaren and William T. about this latest development when we return. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News.
Over the weekend, photos of an improved section of the Pasig River right by the Central Post Office in Manila made the rounds on social media. The reason? Well, as you're seeing now, the area has been completely revamped to make it more festive and lively for those walking in the area. This section spanning half a kilometer is a component of the envisioned Pasig River esplanade. It constitutes the initial part of a larger plan comprising a total of 9 sections with the ultimate goal of encompassing the entire 25-kilometer length of the Pasig River. The structure was done in a neoclassical style to blend in with the rehabilitated Jones Bridge and the Central Post Office building. The completed section of the Pasig Esplanade is expected to be open to the public sometime this week.
How exciting. Let's discuss this new project further with landscape architect and urban designer Paulo Alcazaren and architect William T., who have joined us live in the studio tonight just to discuss this. Now, architect Alcazaren was tapped by the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DSUD, as consultant for the designs of the rest of the river's rehabilitation project. Good evening, architects, and thank you for joining us today.
Good evening. First, we're only started with the first part of the first phase.
Yes,
So-
I was going to ask you, I know also we shared the graphic from
Yes.
WTA clearly. There are 9 segments.
Yes.
Now, this first segment is only 500 meters out of 25 kilometers.
Well, out of 50, really.
50? Or the other
25
20?
plus.
Plus the other side.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's only
1%.
1%.
Okay.
But it's a good start.
It's a good start. And how long did you take to accomplish this? Because, you know, all of a sudden,
Well, that's the
boom.
story. Yeah. 4 months since it was started.
So it can be done.
It can be done. Well, it was built on something existing that was not finished, and so Secretary Alcazaren of the SHUD, Human Settlements and Urban Development, saw it as a good opportunity to do something fast to prove a point. It's a proof of concept that it can be done.
Oh, we like that.
Okay, so sir, just so we can imagine the project, na 25 kilometers, mahaba siya. From what point to what point, ilang areas yung madadaanan ng 25 kilometers na yun?
From Manila Bay to Laguna Lake, there will be 9 segments. The first 2 segments are shorter. It's about 1.7 kilometers. And it becomes 3 kilometers per segment as you go along.
Yeah, longer as you go.
It's longer as you go back. because
Near the lake.
near
How
the lake.
did you cut up the segments? Is it per LGU?
No.
Or is it arbitrary? Like, what was
The bridges were one, and then the opportunities for it's important that each section can be looped
Its own.
and can stand on its own. The problem with previous projects in the past 4 decades is that they've focused only on sections on one side. So we knew that for it to work, people should be able to loop around. So the first section, you're behind the post office, you go under Jones to
on the bridge.
under the bridge to Fort Santiago, and then we're building a pedestrian bridge to the other side to San Nicolas, and then to Escolta, to Quiapo, where he's designed a bridge that's about to be complete for pedestrians, and then you go back to Arroceros and back to the post office. So you can do a loop.
Right. When you're done, how many more pedestrian bridges can we expect? Because I think crossing the river would just like solve so much headaches for
That's true.
people. Sometimes I look, it's just like right there, but the traffic is so bad.
Well,
About
Yeah.
11,
About
because
11 more,
he's already completing one. The DPWIS has
Built another
finished one in Santa Ana. So about 11 or so, 10 or 11. And the cost of all of this, pedestrian bridges, is only the cost of one vehicular bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't need that much, like
because
you don't
one
need
of
so
them-
much files and everything.
One cost because the load is also different,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Plus, people are a lot lighter than cars. Now, I was wondering, just a quick, before we go on with the whole beautification and urban development, because that's really exciting, but I was wondering, tuloy pa ba yung Parex? There was a proposed Pasig River Expressway. I think this was approved September 21 of 2021 in the previous dispensation.
Well, all we can say is that working on these projects, we were never asked to
Consider that.
that. So we assume that it's not pushing through, but it's not in our place to give a formal statement on that.
Okay.
But why would it push through. We're already going to fix both sides, and it would be a shame for something like that to mar the
So I'm
improvements.
going to support that you finish it much faster
Well, that's one of the
before
reasons.
they remember.
But it takes a village. We're just two of the consultants, and there are 15 agencies involved, and we're bringing in other specialists for the other aspects of the urban redevelopment.
Sorry, bago ko ibigay kay Denise, ano ba yung timeline natin, sir?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, yun yung sinabi
Okay,
ni
so-
Chairman Artes ng MMDA.
Yeah.
It's correct. And the whole budget is 18 billion over
That's the projection. At this point, since the master plan is not yet in full detail, it's just a target.
Okay.
Okay, so just for the both of you, William and Paulo, when you were being tapped to be consultants for this Riverbanks Rehabilitation Project, how did you envision this project really helping out and the people benefiting? Because you were talking about, di ba, people looping around, even talking about the bridges, na mas mababa pa nga yung cost nun. So just helping the pedestrians and the cyclists in this whole project.
Yep.
Well, there's like basically 5 considerations. First would be transportation, as you mentioned, nautical, highway, pedestrian, cyclists. You have added tourism. You improve the quality of life of everyone living by the river. You encourage growth and development
On both sides.
on both sides. And of course, now you have an opportunity to create awareness about the river and clean up the environment of the river itself.
And housing, we must mention.
Yes, yes. Let's go to housing in a bit. But actually, I wanted to ask you because at first I thought that, of course, this project was launched last week by the President and the First Lady. And it's, I think she's kind of like the manager of this project. I thought it was just the beautification of the riverbanks and to fix it because it's hard to clean the water because it attaches to the Manila Bay on one side and Laguna de Bay on the other side. But apparently I'm wrong. So how do we, and that they are going to clean the water as well, how does that go and
Well,
what's the technicality behind it?
Yeah.
Well, as the President said, it should not just be a cosmetic.
Yes.
endeavor,
And the cleaning of the river has been going on in the last few decades under the PRRC, which was shut down by the previous president.
That's why I was wondering what's going to happen.
No, the job of keeping it clean is now passed on to DNR.
Okay.
And the LLDA, the Laguna Lake Development Authority. So, and then the local individual LGUs also have responsibilities in any case. So the opportunity is here with this Pasig River rehab to get everyone aligned to one goal is to bring back the Pasig and bring life on both sides of the banks and uplift it to the standards that we deserve.
Mawawala na yung amoy.
Wala na yung amoy. Actually,
It's not been bad. It's not been
we've
bad.
been there for the last 4 months.
I'm sure.
So we're alive.
It's a misconception.
Yeah.
It's actually a
Okay, it
misconception.
has improved already.
Now, this is not a misconception. This is a reality. Some areas of the riverbank have no easement. Some areas have informal settlers. Now, I've read in the papers that the NHA has been tasked to resettle some 10,000, to build 10,000 homes for informal settlers.
A bit more than that.
A bit more than that, okay. But the lack of the easement, how do you work around it as architects and urban planners? Like, where would you pass?
Well, the solution came from Secretary Gosar because he's a
Contractor as well, yes.
He builds things.
Yeah.
And so the solution is to build over the water, which has precedence in other cities, in other esplanades all over the world, Chicago, even in Malaysia, in San Francisco. So long as you're not reclaiming or filling in the piers on which the extensions stand has minimal impact on the flow of the river. So we can extend. So in those areas where we have problems, there actually are various segments of the 25 kilometers already with easements and already with some esplanades. So the task is to connect these missing links.
That would be so exciting. Imagine you could actually technically walk. I mean, it's really long.
And
but
bike.
You could scooter and
it's
bike.
not that far. It's actually like from Manila to Makati, you can do it in like 10-20 minutes by bike.
By bike, yeah. So imagine you're living in Tondo. You can bike to work in Makati, or if you're a construction worker to somewhere in Pasig from anywhere
In a real
else.
bike lane.
Yes, in a real unobstructed bike lane.
As you've seen in the pictures, we made sure that it's a minimum of 6 meters, but in other areas it's 6+3. In other areas it's wider. And these are the easement widths that we were able to put in the Iloilo Esplanade. So it's been done. It can be done.
Pero how do you plan na ma-input, of course, yung mga commercial stalls dun sa area, and baka meron kayong estimate na napag-usapan sa meeting, gaano kadami yung ina-expect natin na possible employment that can, yung pwedeng maging resulta of this project?
Well, we're looking at about 80 to 90,000 square meters of shops.
Feasible area.
The feasible area. So that's about, 800, maybe about 800 retail outlets. So, how many jobs each
And
one
who
would
would
generate.
manage those retail outlets?
That's being discussed by the
Interagency
Council.
Yes.
That's the 15 agencies headed by the SHUD, which is under Alcazaren and Chair Don of MMDA. So we're the designers.
You're the designers.
The management, although we suggest how it could be handled, the management framework is going to be put up by these agencies under the IAC. So our advice is to follow the example of other cities that have set up authorities, like Singapore has a river authority. Sydney has this Singapore Foreshore Development Authority, and other cities have these agencies that manage. It's like an extension. Right. It's actually the PRRC, but with
a different name.
With
different
power.
mandates also.
So it's like a PRRA.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just too bad the previous president killed that one.
What about aesthetics? Since you guys are the designers, and we know that 500, the initial launched portion, does look like the Jones Bridge, which means it looks a bit European, neoclassical, I think Denise said. Will the entire thing be like that?
No.
Or will it kind of shift based on what's around it? Like how's...
It's more neutral.
It will be based on its context, of course, like which segment of the river it is. It has to blend in more with its immediate surrounding.
And
we're different stories.
Yes, different stories, different LGUs, but also economies of scale. We can, of course, it's a little more expensive if we have all of this ornamentation. So the rest of it will be fairly neutral. There's certain spots, attractive areas that we can enhance. So it, like William said, we will play it by ear.
Okay.
Because we're not yet there. We've only done the 1%.
It's a framework right now, the master plan. So the actual, detailed planning has not been completed yet.
Okay, so we're just on the broad strokes.
Yeah, it's a concept stage right
and then
now.
also this gives opportunities for the communities and the LGUs to put in their
2 cents.
More than 2 cents.
More than
In Iloilo, we did the first few phases, and then afterwards, after the third or fourth, they picked up on the designs and actually inputted their own. Like artwork is done by the local communities, and it spawned a lot of murals. The bike racks are also works of art. So once we're encouraging the communities to get involved. We're actively looking for feedback on what they want and what they want to see. So once we get the community's input, and that's part of the IAC's mandate is to tap the local communities, then it can be a work of everyone.
It is so nice. We're seeing photos of the Iloilo Esplanade right now. I read in spot.ph that it took you 9 years to complete that 9-kilometer stretch.
Yeah.
This one is going to be completed in 3 years, hopefully, and you're confident that it can be done since you've already done 1% in 4 months.
Yes, the nine years of Iloilo was because of the limits of the funding, and of course this is national. So we should be able to tap more funds, and the private sector is also going to donate for this.
Exciting.
And it's not expensive. If you look at the 18 billion price tag, is much less than a lot of the big infrastructure projects that we have.
It is. It's actually kind of impressive. And it looks like the rewards will feel more than 18 million pesos. But what are you guys most excited about? I know you've done a lot of government
Finishing
projects.
Hands-on ba si First Lady?
Yeah.
It's been every step of the way.
There's
been
always
presented
coordination meetings, but I think right now this is just 1%, right? So what's interesting if you see a longer stretch and it actually becomes a transportation corridor for many people.
Yeah, but this first section is also part of the tuition that we all pay for. Every river is different. Not all of the lessons learned from Iloilo can be applied. A lot of the lessons.
Yeah.
But this is the matricula of everyone involved. The 15 agencies, a lot of them have not done this sort of work. Most of the, like DPWH, is focused on highways. So designing for cars is different from designing for people.
Very much.
It's a mindset that you have to change. But once you learn it, it's fairly easy to replicate. And so we hope that the Pasig will be replicated in the 16 major rivers in the country.
And so do we now, what's the next section that you will be working on, the next segment?
Completing the first phase, because this is only part one. About
A third of phase, 1/6 of one segment.
Okay, so what was launched last week is only 1/6 of one segment.
Yeah.
So to complete this entire segment.
Yes, and then the rest should be done simultaneously for us to be able to finish the 3-year timeline.
But it's an important section because it connects Intramuros and the Arroceros with San Nicolas, Binondo, and Quiapo. So imagine if you were going to church in Quiapo, you cross the bridge that he designed to Arroceros, and then you go to Intramuros via that esplanade behind the...
You're going to save so much time.
Yes, and you will enjoy it.
And get your steps.
Yeah,
it makes it a walkable touristic spot. Yeah.
And as William often says, what we want to do is to delight people.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for now. We are excited to be delighted by you many, many more times as the segments take shape. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, urban designer Paulo Alcazaren and architect William T. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, before we go, time for our big pictures for tonight. Plural. Here we see thousands of devotees that flock to the Santo Niño de Tondo Church to attend Holy Mass on Sunday, bringing with them replicas of Santo Niño which were blessed after the Eucharistic celebration. Different varieties of Santo Niños were on display during the procession, including the Santo Niño which was dressed like a basketball player. Pero hindi lang pala mga replicas ang pumunta. Some kids who took part in the festivities likewise showed up dressed like the Santo Niño. And of course, other residents of Tondo have their own ways of commemorating the Feast of Santo Niño. Members of the Genaro tribe have gone viral after participating in the Lakbayao Festival 2024 as they danced shirtless.
I don't know what to say.
Actually, nung pinost
You're so
yan-
tita, Mases. Don't be so matita.
Alam mo nung pinost yan, the caption was, Santo Niño, ilayo niyo ko sa tukso.
Saan yun? Sa Facebook?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Well, that will be it for tonight, and we're ending with that.
We're ending with you saying, ilayo niyo. Santo Niño, ilayo mo ako sa tukso.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in on this Monday night. Good evening.